The MLB is a unique sport where players can be unbelievably hot for a month and completely terrible the next. It's a game full of micro adjustments and hot and cold streaks. Switch hitters basically take these hot and cold streaks and make it even more complicated. So now a player could be hot from one side and cold from the other, or have a power stroke as a righty while hitting for contact as a lefty. Combine the streakiness of baseball with the complicated world of switch hitting and you've got some weird scenarios. Ketel Marte is the biggest culprit of this. Marte is the second baseman on the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he loves to hit on odd-numbered years. For the past 6 seasons, Marte has had about average or below average hitting stats on even-numbered years, specifically 2018, 2020, and 2022. While in 2019, 2021, and 2023, Ketel not only hits better, he's one of the best hitters in the league in those years. These are Ketel's slash lines in those even-numbered years I mentioned. Now let's take a look at those odd-numbered years. Like I said, Ketel's not just better, he's almost like an entirely different player. In those even-numbered years, Ketel is averaging an OPS plus of 102. OPS plus is essentially taking OPS and normalizing it across the entire league, where 100 is the average. So Ketel is very slightly better than the league average hitter in even-numbered years. How about those odd-numbered years? Well, Ketel is managing to get an OPS plus of 145 during odd-numbered years since 2018. That's the difference between being an average everyday MLB player and being a perennial all-star, especially at a position like second base, which has really lacked exceptional hitting. So what's causing Marte to click only during odd-numbered years? The first area I looked into was Marte's batting splits. Ketel is a switch hitter, which is one of the most interesting and unique advantages that a hitter can have in baseball. The rule of thumb is that righties hit better against lefties, and lefties hit better against righties. This is not true for every single hitter, but the batting stats across baseball history supports that this is usually the case. In the last 100 years, all right-handed hitters have a 717 OPS against right-handed pitchers, while left-handed hitters have an OPS of 760 against right-handed pitching. On the other side, lefties have an OPS of 682 against left-handed pitching, while righties have an OPS of 762. This is referred to as platooning and is a big part of not only lineup construction, but also pinch hitting and bullpen management. There are a few reasons why platooning is a thing. One of the first ones is that it's much easier for a hitter to recognize a pitcher's arm slot when they are opposite to them. The hitter will see the ball coming toward them as it approaches them from the outer part of the plate as opposed to the inside. Another factor is breaking pitches are often much easier to hit against a pitcher of the opposite handedness because these types of pitches will be breaking in as opposed to away. This has almost always been a part of baseball, and switch hitters are the only players that can constantly have this platoon advantage without ever seeing the disadvantage. However, the difficulty that comes with this is a hitter has to be able to not only recognize pitches effectively from both sides of the plate, but also be able to hit the ball effectively from both sides of the plate. I took a look at Marte's splits against righties and lefties in the last 6 years to see if there was a common problem he was having on odd-numbered years. The clear issue is that Marte has been incredibly inconsistent from the left side. So inconsistent that it's obvious that Marte's overall stats in a season is largely dependent on his ability to hit righties. In the MLB, about 29% of games are started by lefties, so Ketel has to face right-handed pitchers a large majority of the time. The reason he's so much better against lefties is he is naturally a right-handed hitter. I also want to mention that I was researching Marte's stats across the last 6 seasons, and I actually found something really interesting. There were 4 instances where Ketel decided to hit righty against right-handed pitching, which obviously jumped out at me, and I just kept wondering why he did that. Was it because he may have been struggling from the left side too much, or was it because of injury? I just really needed to know. As it turns out, every time Marte hit righty against a right-handed pitcher, it was during a blowout game where he was facing a position player. And the reason for that actually stems from knuckleballers. I figured this out from the Phillies broadcast during his one righty-on-righty plate appearance last season.
He is hitting from the right side versus the righty, probably not so as not to mess with his swing. You see some of these guys do this against knuckleballers as well.
That's a good point.
Sometimes they feel a little bit more.
Many switch hitters across MLB history believe that there was no platoon advantage to facing a knuckleballer, so they usually saw it as more advantageous to hit from the side that they're comfortable with, as opposed to going for that platoon advantage. It seems that the same goes for facing position players, and switch hitters saw that there's clearly no advantage to hitting opposite a guy that's just lobbing the ball in the zone. Therefore, Ketel hits righty against position players, which he is more comfortable with. Jose Ramirez did the same thing earlier this year when he also hit righty against a right-handed position player in a blowout game against the Diamondbacks. As I said earlier, Marte's inconsistency really stems from batting lefty, which we know is his unnatural side. So this is pretty common and sometimes even leads to players starting to question whether they should be switch hitting at all. Cedric Mullins is one of the most recent examples of this, where prior to 2021, he was a switch hitter and really struggled at the plate on the right side. But starting in 2021, Mullins became a lefty full-time and has had a starting spot for the Orioles ever since, and even became the first player ever to join the 30-30 club as an Oriole. So naturally, you might be asking, is this something that Ketel Marte could potentially benefit from? Well, he and his team have actually thought about it. Nick Picoro wrote a great article for Arizona Central a few months ago that featured quotes from Marte and his coaches about his struggles from the left side. The Diamondbacks hitting coach Joe Mather said, "His right-handed swing is just so good. He's so athletic, he's so powerful, he can hit left-handed, but I think his body was built to really be good right-handed. Just the way everything is set up, it's two kinds of different hitters." Marte's struggles from the left side were not only hurting him, but teams were strategically avoiding using lefty bullpen arms against him. So in Marte's winter ball club in the Dominican Republic, he tried to exclusively hit righty, just to see if this was an option he could take for the future. It was no good. It's too late to try. If I was a little kid, yeah, one side might work, but right now, no chance. It seemed like the best course of action would be to continue trying to fix his left-handed swing. Switch hitting was just too ingrained into his game. As I said earlier, Ketel's bad years are almost entirely determined by how well he can hit against righties, which clearly varies a lot. I also don't believe that giving up on switch hitting is something that Marte should really consider, because he's shown multiple times that he can hit exceptionally well as a lefty. To give an example, this is Marte's OPS as a righty in the last 6 seasons. He's been really consistent and never really had a bad year from the right side. However, when he's hitting lefty, it looks much worse. But I think Marte's difficulties to stay consistent against righties are really because of his injury history and struggles to stay healthy. Marte's injuries are one of the main reasons he rarely plays the outfield anymore, and in 8 big league seasons, Marte has only been a qualified hitter in half of them. A hamstring has been the main culprit behind Marte's injury problems. It's not surprising that an injury like that can really affect a hitter's mechanics at the plate, especially switch hitters, as they have to plant down on each side. I want to break down some of Marte's seasons individually so we can pinpoint when these hitting struggles start appearing. 2019 was Marte's huge breakout year, where he got his one and only All-Star appearance, as well as finishing 4th in MVP voting. He played most of the season, and it really was the first sign of the potential he had. 2020 is a really difficult year to analyze because 60 games are just such an incredibly small sample size. Ketel only played 45 games that year, and he slashed 287, 329, 409 for 732 OPS. But he really struggled to generate power from the left side, as he had a slugging of 310 against righties that season. If you were to take Marte's first 45 games of this season, he would be slashing 277, 344, 462 for an OPS of 806. In the 52 games since then, Marte has slashed 312, 401, 564 for an OPS of 965. So you can really see why it's hard to fault any player for having a down year in 2020 when they really weren't given remotely enough time to figure it out. In 2021, Marte looked like he was back in form. However, he missed about half the season because of his hamstring injury, and although it didn't look like it, his hitting was affected as well. If you take a look at Marte's splits against lefties, he was absolutely unreal in 2021 and hit far better from the right side than he did in 2019, although he played fewer games. But against righties, he really took a step back. He slashed 286, 351, 440, and it seemed like the power from the left side just still wasn't quite there. Marte was just so good against lefties that year that his total 2021 slash line is hiding that. The next year in 2022, Marte was able to pretty consistently stay on the field, playing 137 games that year. However, you could argue that the injuries in 2022 were even worse than in 2021, as Marte tried to play through the hamstring problems and saw dips in his production because of it. That year, Marte slashed 226, 313, 383 against righties, and 276, 342, 470 against lefties. So, despite the fact that Marte was a qualified hitter in 2022, he might have been better off not playing through the injuries, as it was clearly affecting him at the plate. Marte's sprint speed kept dropping, he wasn't hitting the ball very hard, and he had the worst strikeout rate of his career. 2021-2022 were very different years in terms of playing time and stats, but both were heavily impacted by hamstring issues. Now to take a look at 2023, I'm confident in saying that Marte is having the best year of his career since his breakout in 2019. Not only is he playing consistently, it seems like his hamstring problems are behind him and he's finally playing healthy again. Not to mention, his splits are looking a lot like they did in 2019, generating an OPS plus of 142 against righties and an OPS plus of 140 against lefties. This is the first time that Marte has hit better on his left side since 2017. He's also played in 99 of the Diamondbacks' 106 games so far this year, so he's not only hitting better, he's consistently staying on the field. There's still another 2 months left, and Marte has already amassed the second highest single season F4 of his career, and his sprint speed is the highest it's been since 2020. It feels like Marte is really back, and he seems to agree. I feel great. My body is good, I'm healthy, I've been working a lot. I think I came here like 3 weeks earlier than everybody to work on my swing, trying to get my confidence back and be the player I know I am. I feel good right now, man, from both sides. Ever since Marte broke out into the scene in 2019, he's proven that when he's healthy, he's one of the best infielders currently in the game. But constant injury problems and a shortened season have hampered his ability to either stay on the field or hit consistently. And as a result of that, he just so happens to look like he loves to hit on odd-numbered years. Here's to hoping that the injuries have subsided and Marte can play at the top of his game to finally break that odd-numbered year curse. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching.